Today we're going to be working on Leetcode question number 352 and data stream as disjoint intervals. Given a data stream input of non-negative integers a1, a2 up to an, summarize the numbers seen so far as a list of disjoint intervals. So implement the SummaryRanges class. So in this one, it's going to initialize the object with an empty stream. Okay, and then now we're gonna have an addNum where we're gonna be adds an integer value to the stream, and the getIntervals is gonna return the summary of the integers in the stream currently as a list of disjoint intervals start of I to the end of I. So in this example, he is initializing, he is adding a number 1 and getting the interval. So the interval when only 1 is added is gonna be 1 to 1. Then he adds another number which is 3. So now the interval, we have two intervals because 1 and 3 are disjoint. We don't have 2 in the middle, so it's gonna be 1 1 is one interval and 3 3 is another interval, and that was the answer. Then he adds another number of 7. So now we have 3 disjoint intervals, 1 1, 3 3 and 7 7. But then he adds 2 in it, so 1 2 and 3 is gonna become one joint interval. So this is gonna be 1 to 3, and 7 to 7 is still on its own. Then in the end we add another number which is 6. So now we have two connective or joint intervals which are disjoint from each other. One interval is 1 to 3 and the other interval is 6 to 7. We're going to be using a data structure called tree map for that. It's going to be much easier. It's going to take care of joining them, giving us the lower end and the upper end, like called the floor key and the ceiling key. So let's just do that. So we are just gonna have our declaration of the tree map, and it's gonna tree map. It's gonna take two integers, integer and integer, called tree map. Yes, and then we're gonna initialize it. So our tree map is equal to new tree map. Looking good so far. So add number and then the get intervals, right? So let's just start with the adding the number. Okay, now when we are given a new value, right? So before processing the new value, what we're gonna do is to get the previous number and the next number, right? So an integer called previous would be when we get this the floor of that. So tree map dot is called a floor key for that value. So you get him the value and it's gonna tell you what's the floor key for that one. And then an integer next would be tree map dot, it's called the ceiling key of that value. Okay, if basically if the there are a couple of things where we don't even need to process it. If we have two conditions, like one is that the previous is not null, right? And when you get the previous value, that is actually greater than the value. Let me just write it down. If that previous is not equal to null, and at the same time, if you see that we have a value for this previous key and that value is greater than equal to the value, that means we already have it in the interval and we don't want to process it. It's not gonna create a new boundary for us, so we're just gonna return. Okay, the other thing we want to see is about if our next is not null and the next is equal to the value itself, right? Then again we don't need to process it. if the next is not equal to null and the next is basically equal to the value itself, right? Then we don't want to process that either. Okay, now we need like a starting interval, and so we're gonna say that initially we're gonna assume that this value is gonna be an interval on its own. So the start is equal to value and end is equal to value. Okay, now we need to check that if the next is not equal to null and the next minus 1 is equal to the value. If that is the case, right, then in that case our end is gonna become equal to treemap.get next, and we're gonna remove the next itself, right? Tree map dot remove the next. What's going to happen, because in the end we're going to change the limits of the start and the end of that tree map. So what we're saying is, like, if the next if basically basically we are saying that if the next which we have is equal, next minus 1 is equal to the value, so this is going to become of that interval. So we are saying that okay, the end is going to change now. The start may not change because start may be the same value for the interval, but the end is gonna get updated. Okay, and the last thing we want to see if our starting point is also going to change. So for that, if the pre is not equal to null and tree map dot get this pre plus 1 is equal to that value, right, then we have to update our start too. So the start is going to become equal to pre, and then we also want to remove the old like the pre from the map. Okay, so in the end we're just gonna put the new interval in the tree map, so that would be put the start and end. Now when it comes to getting the interval, all we have to do is, like, basically there are two things in it. One is like basically we can just get the start and the end from it, but we also need to convert it into like an integer array. So let's just say that the list, because it's gonna be tree map, is gonna be returning a list of integers. Okay, result is equal to new array list. Okay, and we're gonna say our start is gonna be equal to map dot what do you call the tree map dot get key set, sorry. Okay, basically we're gonna be putting result dot add a new so it's gonna be new int, and the values are gonna be equal to start and the tree map dot get start. Okay, in the end we're gonna just say that is looking for an answer in the integer, like array 2D array of integers. So we're gonna say the answer is gonna be equal to new int, and the sizes are gonna be equal to result dot size but all of them has to be, the second one needs to be hard coded to 2. Yeah, it's gonna be just start and end. So for int I equals to 0, okay, the answer of I is gonna be equal to result.get of I, and then we can return the answer. This should be tree map. Looking good. And it works.